All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to the third installment of Doc and Caveman's NBA Draft Profiles. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the top prospects in this upcoming draft, Paolo Banchero. Last year, Paolo had, well, by the way, I'm Dr. Fantasy. This is the Fantasy Caveman. You're welcome. Okay. Paolo last season, well, he's 6'10", 250-pound freshman from Duke. Last year, he averaged 17.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists. Caveman, I think he's a very interesting prospect. I think we just mentioned with Jabari how people are questioning his upside. I think a lot of people are kind of on the other end generically with Paolo. So what do you think are his strengths and what are your overall thoughts on him?
I mean, the first thing that pops out to me is he is a grown ass man. We were talking about he is like the exact opposite of Chet, man. I mean, he is a beefy 6'10" dude. And that's something from day one. You are not going to be able to bully him in the paint as coming out. Like he's gonna be able to hold his own day one in the paint. And you can't really say that about a lot of big men coming out. Uh, to me, the other thing that really stands out to me is for his size, he is an excellent shot creator, both for himself and others. Now, he wasn't like a guy making like advanced reads, knowing where people are gonna be, but he made the right pass when he drove, especially when on the drive and driving kicks were big with him. And then you talk about his shot in general. Uh, he shot. I expect that 3-point percentage to improve when he gets to the league, but he shot almost 50% on middies. And I mean, people might not think that's a big deal because how many guys are taking mid ranges these days. It's kind of been a dying art in the league for a while now. But if that's what the defenses are going to give him, he definitely has the ability to knock those down. And then just in general, I think we just got done talking about uh, Jabari Smith's versatility. I think just for his size, I think Paolo Banquero is right up there with Jabari Smith in terms of versatility. I think they're neck and neck. So it's there's Paolo is one of those guys where it's hard not to fall in love with the guy. There's just so much to love about him.
For his size and his strength and his athletic ability, it's rare. I mean, we're legitimately
Yeah.
talking when he enters the league, like he might be in the top 5 to 10 in terms of just his athletic combination. I mean,
Hmm.
just there's not many guys who are 250 pounds with his kind of speed and athleticism. I just the
This
reality
is
from day one. I mean, I saw some people throwing in like LeBron as one of the only guys that has this kind of combination. I'm not saying he has the skill set of LeBron, but just in terms of his athleticism from day one.
mhm.
I mean, we just talked about Jabari, and he's almost 30 pounds bigger than Jabari and probably more athletic overall. So, I
Mhm.
mean, that's just, you have to highlight that, and it has to be an emphasis because you can't teach that. You're not going to teach Chet Holmgren in the NBA to be this athletic. That's just not how it works. So, that's a big strength of his. He mentioned the versatility. I want to be a little more specific on because defensively, I don't think he has a ton of versatility. And we'll talk about that in his weakness. He could, but he's just not a great defender right now. So I think he offers a lot offensively. I
Mhm.
mentioned a 3.2 assists. He's a great playmaker for his size. He has the opportunity to be kind of offensively one of those point forward mixes where he's moving all around offensively. So he offers quite a bit of upside there. He scores well in traffic. Let's see, you mentioned, I think, his shot creation and his footwork a little bit too. He's able to create his own shot. There's no doubt about that. Offensively, he's a pretty well-rounded product. I think his jump shot, to me, I had it more as a weakness, and I think that could really hinder his offensive upside, because as much as that versatility is fantastic, if he can't keep defenses honest with a jump shot, I think he becomes a lot more predictable, and he's going to have to use that creativity, but that's a lot harder to do in the NBA. So I do think he has the ability. I don't think his mechanics are terrible. I think he's a little slow with it, but he's a okay free throw shooter. I know you always like to look at that to see if they have the potential. So, I don't think it's unfixable. It's just one of those things that I think could hinder his offensive upside. And I guess I'll go into weaknesses too. I guess he's disappointing for me because he's one of those guys that I get very angry at, where I go on rants about when you're this athletic and this talented.
Games getting mad.
I just, when you're this athletic and this talented, why can you not play defense? Answer me that question. It's just, I will be watching the NBA for the rest of my life asking myself questions like this, because I don't understand how some of these players can be so athletic and have absolutely no defensive ability. And I mean, he has the ability to, he just chooses not to. He's one of those guys that makes me so mad, because I don't understand it. So yeah, I mean, that's really, I mentioned his shot. Defensively, he's inconsistent, because he actually, if you watch just through different game highlights, he has moments where he's a very good defender, and with his athletic ability, he should be an elite defender, in my opinion. So if for whatever reason he decides to wake up one day and wants to play defense, I think you're talking about an elite two-way player here. But I mean, very rarely to never do we see guys just decide to play defense one day. So, if he can become at least a pretty good team defender in the right system, I think he would be fine.
Why didn't you just shout out James Harden's name while you're at it? Because I know that's
screw that guy. By the way, nothing makes me happier in life than when James Harden gets eliminated from the playoffs, because I've been saying forever that he will never, ever win a championship, and I just love that he keeps failing as a teammate everywhere he goes. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, I was waiting for this one, because I know that's it. Yeah, you hit on it. I mean,
our next episode's gonna be the same thing, so I'll go.
I think you hit on it. All of his weaknesses, it all boils down to effort on the defensive end. That's what's the most frustrating thing. I don't think the shooting mechanics are terrible. I mean, especially for he doesn't need to be able to knock down threes at a clip like, let's say, Jabari Smith can or will do. He doesn't need to be that guy. But I think if he stays around that 34-35% range from three, I think that's okay for him. But and I'm gonna say this, he is putting defensive effort. That's the only thing standing in the way of him being by far the best player of this draft class. We're talking with his skill set and his ability and his flashes of defensive ability. So we know what's in there. I've seen it. We both have watched games. We've seen him make plays on the defensive end of the court. So he can. But he is having any defensive ability away from. We're talking like 10-time All-Star, some defensive teams, easily a 20 and 10, 20 and 12 almost every season. His upside is so off the charts if he were to show any effort on the defensive end. And we've seen, and what's sad, what worries me about him, and I mentioned James Harden for a reason. Is that we've seen guys try to go through their career relying purely on their offensive ability. And while James Harden has been one of the best offensive forces in the league for a while now, not starting to maybe show a little decline, but I'm afraid that that's what Paolo's going to rely on. And I think that right there is what really limits his true potential.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. James Harden's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to go down as one of the greatest offensive threats of all time.
We'll
But
have a championship.
no, but he never will. And as of right now, Paolo does not play championship basketball. I'm sorry, that's just the reality of it right now. And he would be he might still, because I think it's somewhere in him, somewhere deep down. And I will say that Karl Anthony Towns gave me hope in life this year, because he may have had the most significant turnaround in defensive ability that I've ever seen. Because Karl Anthony, he was an embarrassing defender, and he not only was good last year, he was elite, Karl Anthony Towns. So I do think players can
look at. We saw the Timberwolves take a step forward when he did that.
That's what I'm saying. Now, if he plays like that, and I dare to say this, even Anthony Edwards seemed to be at least giving a little bit of effort, and he was one of those guys that I ranted about when we did his draft profile 2 years ago now, because you're like, he's a guaranteed offensive superstar. It's just whether or not he becomes a winning player is if they play defense. So I think Paolo is the number one player in this class if he decides that he wants to play defense at any sort of level. I agree with that 100%. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Breathe. Okay. Let's move to ideal fits. What do you have for this one, Caveman?
Man, I mean, pretty much every team could use his offense. I'm gonna go with the Magic. And I say this for one, the Magic are a team that have 95,000 guards on their team, so we know that they're not going to be going after like Jaden Ivey, or I think even a guy like AJ Griffin, who we'll cover later. I don't think he really fits that well either. But I think a guy like Paolo, I think the Magic, they need to chase superstar potential, and Paolo. And the thing, I don't know if you hate this or not, but even if Paolo continues to show no effort on the defensive end, he still could very easily become a superstar in the league.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I think that's what the Magic need superstars, because they have a bunch of really solid players now. We saw Cole Anthony have flashes, Jalen Suggs, Markel Fultz.
Franz Wagner was really good last year.
But even I don't see anybody on that team have that like true superstar potential in them. Paolo obviously has that, so that's probably be my number one destination.
Isn't that sad that we've been talking about that for 3 years now? The Magic needing superstar power. Because we legitimately, this is going to be Cole Anthony's third year. Yeah, when we did Cole Anthony's draft profile, we had him, both of us had the Magic as a great landing spot because they needed that superstar upside. And here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, I mean, Cole Anthony's injuries have gotten to him a little bit, but I still, Cole Anthony still has some real potential in him.
No, I like Cole Anthony too, and we didn't get to see a ton of Jalen Suggs last year, who, I think he has that upside too. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you that would be a good fit. I had the Thunder, and just it's a joke at this point, I guess. I mean, they need to chase star power too, I guess. So, yeah, I had the Thunder and the Magic as my top two. I'm not gonna go into that because you summed up well why the Magic are one of those interesting young teams to me in general, honestly, because you look at it, they do have some really nice young pieces, especially if Jonathan Isaac ever not decides, he's had injury problems, but if he ever comes back, I mean, this is, a team that's got a good mix of defensive ability. If Isaac and Suggs and Wagner are all solid defenders, they have some versatility. I think it's a really interesting young team to look out for the next few years. Okay, let's go to comparisons. What do you have for this one?
A couple of names. My first one is Blake Griffin. Now Blake Griffin, even going back to his days with the Clippers and Lob City, was never the greatest defender. He was always that kind of offensive minded for. And that's what the thing is what that the Paolo's inability to play consistent defensively, it's going to be very hard to put him at the 5 in the NBA if he's not showing that defensive effort. So, have we ever really considered Blake Griffin a center? No. I mean, now Blake Griffin is what I know. Blake Griffin is probably a couple inches shorter than. I think Blake Griffin like 6'8", 6'9".
He was listed at 6'9". Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think Blake Griffin, just from the ability to impact on the offensive end. I mean, it took Blake Griffin a while to really get the 3-point game going as well, which, while I don't think it's necessarily a weakness, Paolo could use some tune-up in a 3-point range. So if that pans out, then I like that comparison better. And then Lamar Odom is the other guy. I don't know if I might have mentioned Lamar Odom to you in talking a while back, but just from that, Lamar Odom was always just kind of this offensive-minded front court player, never the greatest defensively. But Lamar Odom was a very underrated passer for his size. He always made the right pass, and just had some versatility, especially on the offensive end. So, those are the two names that I had down.
Yeah, and I think Lamar Odom really is probably the floor, I would hope, for his sake. And not that Lamar Odom had a bad career, but it's just, he was never kind of a star level player. I had Blake Griffin down. I think Blake Griffin with 3-point range is a great comparison. And Blake Griffin has averaged 20 points throughout his career, 6-time All-Star. I think just because of recency bias, you hear the name Blake Griffin, you're like, oh gosh. I think people forget how good he was in his prime. I mean, he was a superstar level player, and he didn't play great defense. So I do think he was 250 pounds. They have almost the same exact profile and athletic profile, that is. So I think that's a good comparison. I kind of like the Knicks version of Julius Randle, not old Julius Randle, but new Julius Randle, who shot 40% from 3 last year, which seemed a little fluky. I think he's in the lower 30s this past season. But, averaged 6 assists with the Knicks, and we talked a little bit about Paolo's playmaking ability. So I think just the well-roundedness of what Julius Randle has been the last 2 years, I think I see that kind of game for Paolo. So, yeah, those were the two that I saw. Carlos Boozer floating around there too on a few blogs. I think that one's intriguing to me. I don't know if it's
but wait, have you ever seen Boozer knock down a 3-pointer?
Let's see if he has any career.
Because I know he's shown Paolo, at least, he has to clean up his mechanic, but Paolo has the ability to become at least an average 3-point shooter in the league.
Yeah.
Carlos.
The one that I saw that one floating around. I'm intrigued, but I don't know if I can buy into it. The other one that I actually kind of like, going back to a little more old school, he did make 1 3-pointer in his career, by the way. So The one that I kind of like, and once again, he's got more 3-point range, but I think their overall skill set is pretty similar as Chris Webber too.
Yeah, I like
and
that one.
That one too. But okay, I think that's it for Paolo here. Next, we're going to have Jaden Ivey on docket. So make sure you check that out, and we will see you guys next time.
Yep.